is our guest presenter, Bruce Becker, who, among other things, is president of the Electric Vehicle Club of Connecticut.
Another set of questions just came in. How long does a battery last? Who repairs it? And don't you have to replace the battery?
The batteries last 10 years or more. And I'm actually not aware of anyone who has had to replace their battery unless they got into an accident or there was some manufacturing flaw. They do tend to lose their capacity at about 1% a year. So after 10 years, let's say you bought a Tesla that would go 300 miles today. After 10 years, it might only go 270 miles on a charge. So it's a slow degradation and they can be recycled. And the capacity is getting larger and larger, so that's a lot less of an issue than it used to be.
Bruce,
These graphs.
If you can go back to that one more time.
Yeah.
With regards to, this question just came in with regards to the EPA EV range. If you could talk a little bit about that versus a range in very cold weather. And also, will charging an electric car ever be as quick as filling a conventional car with gasoline?
Yeah, both good questions. I actually have a graph that maybe is organizes based on the battery size. I'm sorry, I guess it's this one. So this shows the range of these vehicles. The number in yellow on the right of each bar is how many miles you can go on a charge. And so the Fiat 500, a $27,000 car, that will go 84 miles. And then at the top end, almost 400 miles on a charge. And this, these will become greater. My wife had a car that would go 80 miles. My first electric car was a BMW i3, and that will go about 80 miles. And that actually was fine for driving around Fairfield County. I ended up getting a Tesla because I was going up to Hartford a lot, and I wouldn't always be able to charge. But this is more than adequate for the average commute in this country is less than 30 miles. So if you plug in at night, which is when most people charge their car, this notion of range anxiety, when battery sizes were a lot smaller, maybe it was relevant, but now that we have such a robust charging infrastructure and a growing one, it's much less of an issue. Those of us who have electric cars spend a lot less time thinking about fueling our cars than people who drive gas cars. I never have to go to the gas station. I pull in to my garage and I just plug the charger in most nights and wake up with a full charge. So in my mind, I probably spend 5 seconds filling up my car. Whereas if I have to go to the gas station, that's a special trip and might set me back $20 or $30. And it takes, maybe 20 minutes to complete that task. If I'm on the highway, maybe it takes 10 minutes, but I will inevitably run in to get a coffee or use the bathroom when I'm on the highway. And with the supercharger network that Tesla has, you can add 100 miles of range in about 15 minutes. The new superchargers charge at a rate of 500 miles of charge per hour. So that is, 100 miles in like 15 minutes. So it will never be quite as fast, although I have to say I've also had the experience of getting a slow gas pump where you're sitting there for 10 minutes. But it is maybe it's a compromise, but you realize that I would say that over the last several years, I've only had to fill up my electric car maybe once every couple months outside of the house, because I tend to drive to Hartford and back, and I can do that on a full charge. So in some sense, you don't spend any time fueling your car if you're not driving more than 100 miles away every day. And if you use a supercharger, it's pretty quick. And it's getting faster and faster. Every year, there are about twice as many chargers, and the rate of charging is increasing. And I think it's very possible that there will be a time when you can charge an electric car just as fast as you can fill up a car with gasoline.
Okay, and Bruce, just to follow up a couple more questions. One was the question about charging during the wintertime, with battery in the wintertime.
Yep.
And also now a question came in about what about being stuck like in Hartford traffic? If you're stuck there, does that impact the battery?
Yeah, good questions. People don't realize it, but a gas car gets much worse mileage in the winter too. And it's a very similar thing. If you're driving in sub-zero weather and you normally get 25 miles to the gallon, you're going to get like 18 miles to the gallon in your car. And so every vehicle has that, including electric vehicles. So, but also the battery chemistry keeps getting better and better. So my Model S, which is not the latest one, mine's actually like 2 generations ago, it gets about 315 miles normally in range. On the coldest day, maybe it would get 220 miles of range. The other thing that impacts the range is how fast you go. If you're going 65 miles an hour, you'll get what's listed, but if you're going 75, you might get 10% less. But that's also true with a gas car. So it's no different than a gas car. Your range is going to be impacted by the temperature and your speed. When you're in stop and go traffic, you actually do better than a gas car because it doesn't take any energy to sit in traffic. You might be using the energy to heat the car if it's cold out, but now these cars are coming with heat pumps and they're pretty efficient. You know, the price per kilowatt hour of battery storage is about a third of what it was a decade ago, and it keeps going down. And there is a point where the cost of the battery and the electric motor become less expensive than the cost for a gas motor and conventionally powered car. And that's already happened for more expensive cars, like for the luxury cars like Tesla, but it's going to be happening for the less expensive cars soon. I mean, there are studies that show that a Tesla Model 3, the basic small short range car, is if you look at the total cost of ownership, is equivalent to a Honda, but that's going to become accentuated and irrefutable. I wanted to chat a little bit about charging because that question had come up before. And when you buy an electric car, if people have their own parking space at home or even in an apartment building, often you can share parking. But there are those of us who have to park on the street or haven't gotten around to putting an electric car charger at our home. And then we have to rely on the public chargers. So there are a number of different websites that help you find where you can charge your car if you don't have a dedicated charger, or let's say you're traveling and visiting relatives and they don't have a charger. There are many, many of them, hundreds of them in Connecticut. And you can just see in our locality, the ones that are in orange are high-speed fast chargers. These ones are the ones that could charge your car as much as 500 miles an hour. Typically, they would be either superchargers or EV Go fast DC chargers. But then the green ones are level 2 chargers, and those will charge your car, a full charge overnight, certainly maybe in 4 or 5 hours if you have a large battery. But there's no reason to worry if you're traveling because that infrastructure is growing.
So Bruce, I've gotten quite a few additional questions that have come in over the last several slides. I'll keep it with this one here with the plug share. What are the prospects for supercapacitors in electric cars that will allow for very quick recharging.
Yeah, I know that there are technologies that are being integrated. You know, I know Tesla has acquired a company that makes supercapacitors, and that's a way to not only improve the performance and the longevity of the batteries to deliver acceleration quickly, but also to speed up the charging. So this is an area that I don't have much expertise on, but I have been following it, and there's definitely a role for supercapacitors to speed things up. But as someone who's been driving electric cars since 2012, it's just not an issue. I mean, I spend a lot less time thinking about fueling my car than a person who has a gas car. I'm driving all over the state. Uh, um, it's the electric car club. One thing we found is that people who have electric cars um, are the best spokesmen for them. And if you have a neighbor or a friend or a relative that has an electric car, I encourage you to just reach out to them and ask them about it.
Well, thank you, Bruce. I mean, this is fantastic, and I learned so much in this. My whole attitude toward the practicality of the electric car has been totally changed by your presentation, and I'm very grateful to you for it.